If you want me to talk
Oh, marvelous. That's perfect.
Just talk normally.
just talk normally.
Yeah, you
that
don't want to
okay?
crane your
That's
neck. Yep.
Good?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go live. So give it a moment.
Give us a moment. All right.
All right, you're ready.
I'm gonna sit up and check.
Good afternoon. This session is entitled Getting Started with Document Accessibility. My name is Darren Gabbert, Carmen Schafer, and I work for the University of Missouri's Adaptive Computing Technology Center. Our center is focused on making information technology accessible to all students, faculty, and staff at MU. And document accessibility is a big part of that. Our learning objectives for this session are to gain an introductory knowledge of document accessibility, define the difference between usable accessible documents and nominal accessible documents, apply accessibility fundamentals in Microsoft Word and perform a check, and convert accessible Word documents to accessible PDF documents. During this presentation, you will hear Carmen and I refer to assistive technology, also known as adaptive technology. Assistive technology is software or hardware that helps people with disabilities access information. I am both a user of assistive technology and a practitioner of assistive technology. I have an advanced form of muscular dystrophy, and I use what is called switch access to operate my PC workstation, to drive my wheelchair, and to control my smartphone. Because of my tracheotomy, you are hearing my narrative as text-to-speech. The assistive technology that I use is the same as that used by the late Dr. Stephen Hawking. I like to think that Dr. Hawking got all the brains, and I got all of the good looks. That said, let's get started. Our aim for this session is to lay the groundwork for creating documents that can be accessed by everyone. So what can we really do to accomplish document accessibility? Back in my college days, there was not that much to talk about with regard to document accessibility. This physics book represented a common document format. Many of my classmates had no trouble physically accessing it, as long as they didn't have a doctor's restriction for lifting over 10 pounds. Most all of us had trouble cognitively accessing it. Someone with a visual disability would have been dependent on a sighted person in order to access it. And I accessed it with the effort of wrestling a bear. Its size alone was a formidable obstacle to me being able to turn the pages. So we can clearly see that our digital age offers tremendous opportunities for increasing information access. Opportunities that we either seize or we lose. When we consider electronic document accessibility, we first need to understand the scope of what we are calling a document. common electronic documents include text files, PDF files, spreadsheets, and slide presentations. Each of these categories represent a format of electronic documents. And within each format, there are countless ways to structure content. Secondly, we need to understand the scope of who might be accessing the document. Persons impacted by inaccessible electronic documents include those with visual, auditory, motor, and learning disabilities. Within each of these disability types, there are variabilities, but in general, we can expect persons who are blind to use a screen reader to access electronic documents. A screen reader is going to speak the text of a document, as well as speak a list of headings, if the document uses heading styles, and will also speak alternative text of images, if alternative text has been added. Users with low vision might need to enlarge document content or change color contrast between the background and the text. Persons with auditory impairments need captions or transcripts associated with audio and multimedia content. For example, I have a transcript of my narrative for this PowerPoint presentation. Persons with mobility impairments, like myself, cannot use the mouse to navigate through an electronic document. Assistive technologies for persons like myself depend heavily on a document structure that supports keyboard navigation. I will show you a demonstration of that shortly. Those with learning disabilities are likely the largest disability group of the four. These users often make use of text-to-speech while reading, and they benefit most from clear and understandable content structure. So we have a broad scope of ways to present electronic information, and we have a broad scope of potential user needs to access this information. Thus, with all this variety, it is best to avoid thinking of document accessibility in terms of absolutes. In other words, we don't refer to a document as either accessible or inaccessible. Rather, we can think of document accessibility in terms of a continuum, where accessibility correlates to the number of users that can access the document. As this diagram portrays this relationship, we see that less built in accessibility means less users benefit from the information. Building in more accessibility means more users benefit. Incorporating accessibility for some results in increased usability for all. When we think of document accessibility in terms of a continuum, we might feel compelled to ask ourselves, how accessible do I want my documents to be? Who or how many people do I want to have access to the document I'm creating? How easy or how difficult to understand do I want this document to be? Judging from my years of experience, which are painfully beginning to add up, I mostly see people choose one of two different approaches. They either aim for nominal accessibility, where they aim for usable accessibility. A nominal accessible document would fall more to the left, less users, and pretty much aims to meet minimal requirements for accessibility. And these requirements may vary. The argument can be made that an document with no heading structure is nominally accessible. A PowerPoint presentation with poor color contrast is considered nominally accessible by a frighteningly large number of people. But this is a perfect example of the benefits of aiming to create usable, accessible documents. A document aimed at usable accessibility would fall to the right of our diagram, more users. Usability is what we are really after. And honestly, color contrast can make or break a PowerPoint presentation for an entire audience. And it will be extremely appreciated by those of us over 50. Incorporating accessibility for some results in increased usability for all. Carmen is our accessibility guru, and she is going to be giving you some pragmatic ways to make usable, accessible documents. My assistive technology specialty is actually productivity. Access to technology alone is not enough to succeed in academia or the corporate world. Productivity is the goal, and accessibility plays hand in hand with productivity. I will give you an example. If you want to review and understand a technical video, and there is a searchable transcript available for that video, anyone interested in productivity is going right for the transcript. Search, find, cut, paste. It's accessible, it's efficient, and it's productive. Before I hand off to Carmen, I want to show you a quick demo of my adaptive switch access using an accessible Word document. This is a screen capture of one of my 2 displays on my Windows 10 workstation. In the lower right corner, you can see my switch access scanner. I use an infrared switch pointing at my cheek muscle to make selections. I have the scanner set at a scanning rate of 100 milliseconds. That means that choices change every 10th of a second. On average, it takes about 4 switch triggers to type a single letter. I can type about 13 words per minute. Here's an example. So this is a Microsoft Word document of a journal article about technology optimization. No, my wife does not think I'm a boring nerd, in case you were wondering. I want you to notice the active ribbon. It is called the Productivity Ribbon, and it's a free download from the great state of Texas. It is a tool associated with their learning modules on making Microsoft Office documents accessible. Very nice resource that they have made available to everyone. This basically brings accessibility-related commands together on a single ribbon. So you see the first group is File Tools, then Zoom Commands, Structure-related commands, Lists, Layout, Tables, Language and Links, Forms, and Pictures. Everything available in Office for document accessibility and productivity. What makes this document especially accessible for me is that having used the styles for creating the heading structure, I can easily navigate the document using the keyboard, and someone using a screen reader would benefit in the same fashion. So that was a quick look at document accessibility from a switch access perspective. Carmen is going to give you some more accessibility fundamentals that you can use for supporting persons with other limitations. But I will say it again, incorporating accessibility for some users results in increased usability for all users. Carmen.
Thank you, Darren. When we create and share electronic documents, it's important to ensure they're accessible. Now we'll cover some document accessibility fundamentals. Accessibility starts with the creation of a new document using an authoring tool, such as Microsoft Word. A document can only be made as accessible as each authoring tool allows. So it's important to ensure that you're considering which tool is best for your needs. Some tools offer more features and capabilities than others. For instance, designers prefer Adobe InDesign for flexibility of layout. Today, our focus is going to be on features specifically in Microsoft Word 2019 for Windows and what you should be thinking about when creating accessible documents. Document accessibility can begin with how you name your electronic document. Meaningful file names make it easier for everyone to find, open, and manage documents. Let's watch a quick video to demonstrate. This video should be captioned.
Giving your documents meaningful file names and
Wait, sorry. Maybe that's gonna.
Giving your documents meaningful file names and document properties makes them easier to find for everyone. These are especially important for meeting new accessibility guidelines like the US Section 508 refresh, the new EU Directive on Accessibility, and many others around the world. A good file name provides clues to a document's content and age. Here's a file with a descriptive file name. Support reviews _June 15. Compare that to a vague file name like this one, which gives a user no context for what's inside. To rename a document in File Explorer, right-click the file, choose Rename, type the new name, and hit Enter. Remember, this won't work if you've got the document open in a program like Word. When you've got your document open in Word, you can add a title and author name to the document properties which makes the file easier for others to find. Adding these properties is also part of the US 508 Accessibility Guidelines. To get started, select the File tab. On the right, you'll find the document properties. Next to the word title, you'll see the document's current title, or if it doesn't have one, the words Add a Title. Either way, you can click here to create a descriptive title for your document. Further down the properties list is the Related People section. Click on Add an Author to add a new author to your document. You can add as many authors as you need. For more on creating accessible documents, go to aka.ms/accessible.
As the video mentioned, the file name and the document title are two separate things. Providing a title in Word will, once converted to a PDF, in the Adobe Acrobat application bar, it will show up. We have two pictures of the open PDF documents in Acrobat. The first PDF, test.pdf, is actually the file name, so there's no document title. The second file, the title is Annual Sales Report. That is actually the document title properties. Assistive technologies that include speech synthesizers can speak in multiple languages. To take advantage of this, it's sometimes necessary to specify the language of all or parts of the document. Let's watch a quick video to demonstrate how language settings impact the way assistive technologies convey speech. This video should be captioned too.
Welcome. Accessible University left parent A new right parent is a fictional university, and this is its fictional homepage. This page is designed to demonstrate a variety of common web. Bienvenido. Accessible University left parent UA right parent es una universidad ficticia y esta es su página de oficina. Esta página está diseñada para demostrar una verdad común. Heading Level 2. Bienvenido. Accesible Universidad abre paréntesis UA cierra paréntesis es una universidad ficticia y esta es su página de ficción. Esta página está diseñada para demostrar una variedad de común.
In Word 2019, to set the default overall document language, select the Review tab. Press the Language button. Then choose the Language Preferences option. Select the appropriate language and press the Set as Default button. You can also specify a different language for selections of text. You do this by using the Set Proofing Language option. Word has restricted editing features in the Review tab that prevents other users from opening or modifying documents, but they can also restrict the ability to fully check a document for accessibility. These features can also result in even making the document inaccessible to users of assistive technologies. Carefully consider whether you need to use document protection and disable these features during testing, accessibility testing, which I'm going to cover next. Or actually, a little bit later. Now we're going to dive into some easy techniques for creating accessible content in a Word document. A heading is defined as either the title of a page or section of text, or direction or bearing. They are named appropriately, since headings provide direction to users. This is what Darren demonstrated earlier. Screen reader users can use heading levels to navigate through a document or to get a quick overview of the page content. Assistive technologies can only interpret and convey text as headings when we use styles built into Word, located on the Home tab, to format text, instead of using character formatting, such as increasing the font size. You can modify these heading styles, such as font type, font size, color, any way you want. Word creates an outline of your document when using headings in the navigation pane. To access the navigation pane, select the View tab and check the box Navigation pane in the Show section. This allows you to quickly determine if the document structure is correct and if it's accessible to assistive technologies. Bullet and numbered lists help users easily understand content by grouping information and establishing relationships. Assistive technologies can convey these relationships to the user if the lists are created properly. To create a list, on the ribbon bar, select the Home tab. Choose the bullet button, the one with the circles, choose the bullet button for unordered lists. For ordered lists, choose the numbering button. Tends to be a list that's one in a sequence, and that's the one with the numbers on the screen. To place or nest one list inside of another list, so like you have your normal list, and then as shown on the screen, coffee, and then you have a sub-list, caffeinated or decaffeinated. To do this, you want to use the Increase Indent button to nest it under the list above. And then if you want to remove that nesting, then you use the Decrease Indent button. What this does is it moves the margin, it moves your list further away from the margin, and it nests it under so that the assistive technology can read it as a nested heading. It'll convey that to a screen reader user. Finally, you can create a style that specifies the amount of the list of indentation that you want in your document. So if you create a lot of documents, really use styles, because they can also save you time, which goes back to Darren's productivity. Styles can do everything. Tables can present challenges for users of assistive technology. Microsoft Word provides basic functionality for accessible tables. For more complex tables, such as those with merged cells and multi-level headers, add a description of the table contents within the document text. Tables which contain data usually have column headings. This requires that the top row be formatted as a header. To set the top row of the table as a header, select the top row and right-click it or press Shift F10. Click Table Properties. That's the option from the drop-down list on the screen, and choose the Row tab on the Table Properties window. Ensure that the option Repeat as Header Row at the top of each page is checked. Sometimes tables are used exclusively for layout, which can cause confusion when viewed via a screen reader. Using columns is a feature that is a more accessible practice. To properly divide a page into columns, on the ribbon bar, select the Layout tab and choose Columns. Pick the number of columns that you need. Now let's look at creating accessible links. Instead of pasting a link or a web address into a document, use the Insert Hyperlink feature built into Word. You can provide meaningful text description in the text to display section of the insert hyperlink window. The displayed link text should inform the user of the link's destination, function, or purpose. Let's hear a couple examples of a screen reader reading links to demonstrate. The first example is of a non-descriptive link text, and listen closely.
Learn more visited link. Click here visited link. http://mrmrs.io/writing/2016/03/23/the-fail-of-ignorance visited link.
That told me where I'm going. Now, I'm going to play an example of a descriptive link text. And again, listen closely.
Creating accessible link text visited link. The difference between accessible, usable, and universal design visited link. Quote, the veil of ignorance, quote, challenges readers to imagine awakening in the new reality in which they are no longer the person they were visited link.
Remember, this is for electronic documents only. If you are producing documents that will be printed, using this technique will hide the URL in the printed document. Non-text content typically comes in the forms of images such as charts, graphs, page borders, icons, so on. And it tends to fall into two categories. Meaningful, which means it conveys information, or purely decorative. If it has meaning, you must provide a text equivalent, commonly known as alternative text or alt text. There are some exceptions. Well, this may be the only exception. Anything that could give away an answer on an exam, then you're going to want to talk to, faculty members are going to want to talk to their disability center how to handle those types of situations. If it does not have meaning, mark it as decorative. This hides it from the assistive technologies. Word 2019 is the first version with the ability to hide decorative content. I'm seeing a nod, hey, Microsoft, finally, thank you. Wow, that took them a little while. Workarounds for the previous version of Word, there are some workarounds people have come up with. So entering decorative is the alternative text, converting it to a PDF and using professional tools to hide it from the assistive technologies, or a couple of ways people get around that. To add alternative text to a non-text content, select the image, right-click it or press Shift F10, and then choose Edit Alt Text. In the Alt Text window, as shown on the screen, enter your description or check Mark as decorative for decorative content. Word 2019 also introduced a feature called Generate a Description for Me. If you try this feature, please just verify that the alt text is appropriate because your results may vary. When deciding on what to mark as decorative content, please be sure it is absolutely, or let me rephrase that. Please be sure that it absolutely does not have meaning. For example, I have a friend named Gary Wunder. We have a picture of Gary on the Radio Friends with Paul Pepper program on the screen. He lives in Columbia, Missouri, and he's been blind since birth. He is the treasurer of the National Federation of the Blind's Columbia chapter. Although he cannot see pictures of his children, he shares them with friends and family. We often see images being hidden from screen readers and assistive technologies, even though their existence has meaning. Pictures themselves are information. We've included a link of videos of Gary Wunder on the Radio Friends with Paul Pepper program at the end of our presentation. Assistive technologies do not automatically read information in headers, footers, or watermarks. And not all assistive technology users may know how to access these features. Document creators need to be aware of this and duplicate any vital information in the related content. Here we have an example of vital information in a watermark repeated in the body of the text. Now let's look at our last technique, which is the appropriate use of color. On the screen, we have two Google Maps of the downtown area in Columbia, Missouri. The map on the left is in color, and the map on the right is in grayscale. Can anyone find an example of how they are using color alone to convey meaning? Anybody want to take a guess?
Categories.
Parks, yes. Now, obviously, they have a correct example of where you would, the text with an icon that helps indicate it. But you're right. But in the grayscale, these other other areas of parks. Any more? Yes. Yes. So we have these two main roads, and then we completely lose the color. They become just like the rest of the roads. So the main roads, they use color alone. So people who cannot perceive some color or all color due to visual impairments such as color blindness need comparable access. Assistive technologies like screen readers do not read color information, and the colors on the map would not be comprehensible to a screen reader user. It's important to use color along with other descriptive components such as text, patterns, shapes to convey meaning. Individuals with low vision require an adequate amount of color contrast, but we all can benefit from good color contrast. Now we'll play a short video on color contrast, and it should be captioned because it's W3C. Although I think it doesn't start until after the first splash screen, so.
Web accessibility perspectives. Colors with good contrast. There's something about great design that allows it to go practically unnoticed. But it doesn't take much to make things confusing and frustrating. Choosing colors with poor contrast makes navigating, reading, and interacting a real pain. Good design means sufficient contrast between foreground and background colors. That's not just text and images, but links, icons, and buttons. If it's important enough to be seen, then it needs to be clear. And this is essential for people with low contrast sensitivity, which becomes more common as we age. With good colors, websites and applications can be easier to use in more situations, like in different lighting conditions. Web accessibility, essential for some, useful for all. Visit w3.org/WAI/perspectives for more information on colors with good contrast.
Darren's playing chess while I'm presenting. Once you finish creating your document with accessibility in mind, you need to check the document for accessibility. Oh, what I just said on this slide. And then I need to advance this slide. Microsoft Word has a built-in accessibility checker which flags issues within your document. To run the accessibility checker, on the ribbon bar, select the File tab and choose Check for Issues and click Check Accessibility. The Inspections Result pane appears on the right side of the document, and it lists errors and warnings. Errors indicate content that people with disabilities are unable to read. Warnings indicate content that people with disabilities will find difficult to be able to read. Select an issue to access the recommended action list. The additional information section provides more information about why you should fix the issue, steps on how to fix the issue, and a link to a help guide on making Word documents more accessible. To export your Word document to a PDF, ensure that you have ran the Microsoft Accessibility Checker and fixed all of the issues first. After you are sure that all the accessibility issues have been fixed, click File, Save As, or press F12. Select the location where you'd like to save the document, and choose PDF from the Save As Type drop-down box. If you have the Adobe Acrobat add-in, it is recommended to use it instead. Once you have converted your Word document, it's best practice to run an accessibility check on the PDF. If you have Adobe Acrobat Professional, there is a built-in accessibility checker, and it will test the PDF for issues and instruct you on how to fix them. The organization Access for All has a free PDF accessibility checker, which includes a built-in screen reader preview mode. You can also test color contrast using the color contrast analyzer created by the Posse application. This was a basic overview of the fundamentals of document accessibility. On the screen is a list of resources that we use for today's presentation, which can be also used to guide you through creating an accessible document. Word document. Thank you all for attending, and we'll take questions because we have time.
We actually don't have that much time.
We don't have
Because
enough
it goes
time?
until 2:30, and 2:30 to 3 is the snack break downstairs.
Oh, so we only have till 2.
Oh,
You
so we're
you
done.
You want
Oh,
to
sorry. I'm so sorry.